What is up, my friends? Welcome back to the show. I'm Alex, if you haven't met me yet before, and today on Coaches to the Moon, we're going a little off of our usual path. We're still talking about coaching, still talking about marketing. We're also delving into some topics and subjects that very few of us could claim to understand. But luckily, we have my guest today, Mr. Ben Eden, the healing medium, to guide us along those pathways. Ben is a medium, which means that he can connect with the spirit world in a way that he believes everybody can. But he's going to show us how to do so, why that's important, and why his unique brand of mediumship is so effective for his clients in changing their lives in a positive way. This conversation today delves into trauma. It delves into spirituality, religion. It delves into marketing, a little bit of everything we like, and some more sprinkled in there for good measure. Really beautiful, insightful conversation with a guy I seriously love to bits. Ben Eden is a fantastic man. I think you'll really enjoy this one, something a little different. So thank you so much for being here, guys. Let's get into the show.
This is Coaches to the Moon, the only podcast you need to skyrocket your coaching business and create true impact on the world. Here's your host, Alex Morris.
Welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Really interesting and fun show for you today. I have my very good friend, Mr. Ben Eden, the healing medium, with us, originally from about an hour and a half away from me in England, but now residing in sunny Queensland. Ben is a medium who basically, he's going to dig further into what that means for all of us, but he is able to connect with the spirit world in a way that apparently most of us can with the right training. So I'm really keen to dig into that. He is a dedicated mediumship mentor, helping lots of people to connect with their own loved ones with evidential readings, which is another thing I'm very, very keen to hear about. And from a coaching and marketing standpoint, you've created success in what I would say is a very, very niche area, but I may be wrong. I'm really keen to dig into how all this came about, Ben. So without further ado, Mr. Ben Eden, thank you and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
You're amazing, Ben. I've really enjoyed working with you so far, mate. And excuse my ignorant intro, but I, like many people, probably don't know heaps about the world that you work in and the world you spend your time in coaching your clients and doing mediumship readings for other people. So can you just give us, the 12-year-old's breakdown of what it is that mediumship means?
Yeah, so essentially mediumship is a broad term, and there's so many people out there that use the word mediumship, but essentially what it is connected into the spirit world. So people that are once here but have now passed over, and communicating with them directly and receiving information from them through energy. So essentially reading energy.
Got it. So, but it's coming from a very positive place, yeah. Not kind of Ouija board style. It's a nice and positive outcome for everyone, I guess.
Yes, it's working in the realm of love. So the messages that I receive from the spirit world are essentially to uplift, encourage, motivate, inspire, and heal the person that's receiving the message from them.
Is there any religious element to this?
For me, there isn't. And it depends on kind of like how you resonate with the word religion. For me, I definitely believe in God, higher being, source, but not in any connection to any religious book or religion as we would see it here.
Got it. Yeah, because you always see, sorry to just use pop culture to reference what it is that you do, but you always see in horror movies and stuff, it's always the priests who come in and talk to spirits and demons, that sort of thing. But this is not that. I just want to clarify that for the people in the audience. It's just you really provide a great service by helping people to connect to their loved ones, and you do it in a very special way.
Yes.
Which is evidential readings.
Yes.
Now, evidence is always a good thing, because this is a conversation which I'm sure plenty of people are rolling their eyes at already, and I know that you've experienced that in your life.
Yeah.
So you won't mind me saying that. Evidential readings. How do you provide an evidential reading, evidence that you're actually doing this, and what does that look like to your clients?
So essentially for me, Evidential really is something that I'm very, very passionate about, because you can go to a medium and receive messages from your loved ones, but there's so many people out there where that's not really going to have too much of an impact unless you know that that's definitely your loved one. Because anybody could sit here and say that and give those messages, and they're likely from, spirit or, a spirit team. But for me, if we can evidence who we have in front of us, and then we can say, right, I have your mum here, and I know what your mum was like as a person, I know all of the conversations that you had with her, the lead up to her passing, all of these things. Once you're actually able to evidence that with you, so that the client in front of you feels that, like they feel that in the energy in the reading, when you then go on to give these messages to say, look, your mum is with you now, that you're going for a new job, she's really proud that you're going for this job, and not only that, she's supporting you through this journey and she's with you, that impact that has on that person that is missing their mum so much is so profound that their life likely changes after the reading. But in my opinion, you can only do that if you get the evidence right first.
Right, and so the evidence is knowing certain things about that person that no one else would know.
Exactly right, yeah.
Right, got it. I can see how that would be very powerful. How did this all come about, mate?
So for me, I've always been connected to spirit. I was seeing, hearing, and feeling spirit as a very young boy. I always just thought that was normal and that everybody was doing that themselves. So it wasn't anything that was really spoken about. So I had that from a young age, and then as I started to grow up, it started to fade away because, of course, we pick up our conditioning and we go through traumas and all of these things start to happen for us. So I then just lived a normal life. But for me, I was always very empathic, so I can always feel how other people are feeling. And that was just how it was up until I hit to about 25 years old. And I was in a domestic violent relationship for 4 years. And I came out of that relationship and a spiritual awakening just occurred naturally because I was going through so much trauma. And I started to question, after being through something so big, I started to question, why had I have gone through that? Why me? Up until that point, my life had been full of trauma outside of the relationship as well. So naturally, it was like, why am I here? What is the point of me being here if I'm just going to go through these difficult times? So continued to ask those questions whilst I was trying to heal from this trauma. And then as I asked the question, spirit started to step in more and more. And I was naturally drawn to the things that helped me find the answers to those. So I was researching all about energy and meditation and kind of healing and delving into that. Started to go through the healing journey myself. And as I started to unravel these layers of conditioning and also these layers of limiting belief and trauma, I started to connect more and more. And my connection to spirit just became so direct as the years went on. So it just naturally developed from there.
Wow. So going back to the very beginning of that one, you mentioned hearing, feeling, and seeing. When you say seeing, what are you seeing when you see spirits?
So I always used to see energy around me. If I was in a room, it would be colors. I would see things moving, but it wasn't quite a person. I wouldn't be able to see a person, but I would just constantly see things out the corner of my eye in front of me. So those are the sorts of things that I now know was spirit, but it just looked like colors for me.
Right. So we're not having the old, apparition of a human figure, some little girl in Victorian clothing, riding a scary little tricycle sort of thing. It's all energy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And then so really interesting that you mentioned that this was something that you were connected to, and then conditioning took us away from it, much like I'd imagine someone who just dreams of having a certain profession when they're a kid, and then it's just beaten out of them by where they live or what their mates say. I'm glad you came back to it.
Yeah.
But your awakening back to it came quite late. So you said that the relationship was when you were about 25.
Yeah.
4 years from then. So you're nearly 30 when you kind of came back into what you're doing now?
The relationship ended when I was 25, and that's when kind of the spiritual awakening happened for me.
Cool. And so during that time, that must have been obviously a very traumatic time for you. Do you think that having that trauma happen to you on a daily basis and just living in that all the time, During that, did that bring you closer or further away from, what you'd consider to be your path?
When I look back at it now, it brought me closer to it, because being in those environments, you start to develop this skill set, which people who haven't been in this situation typically won't have. And the skill set is being able to tune in to someone's emotions and feelings and thoughts, and then so that we can keep ourselves safe. And then as we're feeling into their emotions, we know what their intention is, so we can then change. So say, for example, you're in this violent situation, you feel the lead up to it, then you adjust your behavior so that you prevent it happening in the first place. So when I look back on it now, that skill set that I learned over the 4-year period has helped me massively in my readings now, because I can feel the communicator, I can feel what they want to say, but also my client, I can tap into how they're feeling. At the time, it definitely didn't feel like that, but back, that's how it feels.
Do you mean that sort of feeling that when you're in a pub and you can feel it's about to kick off, that sort of feeling?
Yes.
Nothing's happened yet, but there's like a vibe.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you're now so connected to that vibe that you can see other people going through something similar and help them before anyone else could.
Yeah, and you can start to read that vibe that comes forward. You can read what is that, instead of it just kind of like being a feeling. You're tuning into that to find out what is actually going to play out. So,
Wow.
Obviously being a medium and connecting with the spirit world, you are reading energy. So it's the same kind of way. So you can do it for the spirit world, but also for your client as well.
Yeah, great. Because you do readings for other people, but you also teach people to do that.
Yeah.
So I'd love to jump into the readings part first. What sort of people come to you, and when they come to a medium, do they know what they're looking for? Like people for the first time, what do they really want from you?
So most of them don't know. Most of them have no idea. They just come across me online. Typically, they've seen my testimonials and they want to connect with me because they've resonated me for a reason. As a medium, you start to attract older versions of you. So every single person that comes to me for a reading, there is something about them that I used to be. And that works amazingly, and spirit guides people. When people have that pull where they're like, I really feel I need to have a reading with this person, it isn't really that they want a reading, it's that they're resonating with something in my energy that they can relate with, and then they have this strong desire and pull, and then they need to book this reading. And I know that very deeply. So when I have this person in front of me, I'm tuning in to find out what is that part of them that is like me. So it'll be people that have been through domestic violence, people who've been through difficult upbringings, all of the traumas that I've had throughout my entire life. And when they come to me, they don't have any idea. They're just there and they know they need guidance. They're struggling. They're stuck. They don't know how to move forward in their life. It could be their relationship's ended, or maybe they hate their job, or even like their loved one, they just miss so deeply. And that person would be the one that they would go to for support. And now they have no one to go to, and they're struggling to navigate life. They don't know how to change. They know they're unhappy, but they don't know how.
So having you help them to connect to, to their mum, a lot like I used to always just go, I remember sit on the kitchen bench when I've had a horrible day at work and then just talk to mum. You're able to bring that back for them one more time. That's really, really, really powerful. It's interesting what you said about people being an older version of you, because when I'm teaching people to market their coaching businesses, basically everyone's marketing to an earlier version of themselves in one way or another, because that's how you come through. You're basically, us coaches, we're learning how to we're going through challenges to then learn how to deal with them, and then we have the tools to help other people deal with them as well, which is super nice, man. I love. Is this a very emotionally draining job that you've got, or is it actually quite the opposite because you're providing such a good service?
For me, it's the opposite, because I love it. I love it so much. Like when I have this person in front of me, and all of the words that are coming out of my mouth when I'm in this reading, they're not mine. So I'm learning. Like when they're saying things, the whole time I'm thinking, oh my God, I can take stuff from this. Like I'm going to implement this in my life. So I'm like healing and growing and developing and listening so carefully to every word that comes through from the spirit world, because, they're all knowing. They know everything. There's not anything they don't know, the spirit world. So when this person's going through this challenge, I'm listening to that thinking, I'm going to implement that next time I have this challenge. And because I'm connected so deeply to the spirit world, I feel like I'm being energetically healed. So my energy rises. So if I'm feeling under the weather, well, first thing I want to do is go and read. I want to connect to the spirit world. It's just pure intelligence and pure love. And then at the end of it, I feel better.
That's beautiful. How good. How good. So the people you're speaking with, it's a version of their loved one, but with this omnipotence from being part of the spirit world. Now it's just a vessel for infinite knowledge and power to come through them.
Yeah,
that's really cool, man.
This broader understanding that they have now, which is particularly powerful when somebody has had a difficult relationship with their loved one, so their mum, their dad, or partner, now partners in the spirit world, and can look back from this broader perspective and go, I didn't treat you how I should have done. And where they can come from this place, this is where the healing comes in. It's always this broader perspective that they're looking at it from.
Yeah, wow. Is there like a client medium confidentiality agreement, or are there any stories that you could tell us about the most powerful readings you've had?
Most of it I don't remember because I'm channeling, and it's like you're observing it as a medium. You're observing like what's going through. But probably the one that comes to mind the most is I had a wife in front of me, and her husband was in the spirit world, and he tried to kill her and their kids. So it was a huge, massive situation where she was really lucky to have survived because they were all in the process of dying, essentially. And she managed to call the police before, and then the police came and rescued her. He died in that process, and her and the kids survived. So, it was massive because she had gone through domestic violence, for years and years through this marriage. And she just became a shell of who she was, and now she was trying to rebuild her life. But she couldn't. Because every time she tried to, this trauma was just coming back for her. So for him to come forward, and I passed on the messages, and he gave specific examples of the things that he wishes that he hadn't have done, and the things that's happening now in her life because of him. And he was urging her, after apologizing a lot, to release some of this. But not only that, he was telling her how to, because it's not as easy as that, is it? You can't just release trauma. You need to be able to know the avenue for you that's going to work so that you can. And then he was giving her all of this advice of what she should do. She's a long-standing client of mine now. So, she went and did the work like he said, and her life has just got better and better and better. Now married, with someone new that treats her amazingly. Jobs taken off, like her whole life is transformed. But had she have not heard those words from him where he said, I'm sorry, that's my fault, because he never took accountability whilst he was here. That's just what she needed to move forward.
Hey guys, Alex here. If you're enjoying this episode, please give us a moment to like, follow, or subscribe on whatever platform or channel you're watching or listening to this one. I really hope you're enjoying it. Let's get back to the episode. Wow. That's amazing. Really. So yes, it's funny because from the outside, my sister's a prison chaplain.
Yeah. So
she deals with some people who've done some really heavy stuff. She works in a maximum security prison, just has conversations with people who've done some of the worst things ever. And she can get pretty knackered after doing all that stuff. But the way that you're saying that, that sounds like the heaviest conversation ever, but it's turned into such a positive thing for you because of the way this guy framed it. Really, really cool, man. Now, you also teach people to become mediums as well, which is something that from the outside looking in, I would assume that you kind of got to always have a little connection to the spirit world like you did when you were a kid, but that's not really the case, you believe?
Correct, yeah. We all have the ability to be able to connect to the spirit world. Every single one of us. If you're human, you can connect. It doesn't mean that everybody should. There's some people that shouldn't. And that's why some people will be called to do the path where they'll feel drawn. They'll have that calling, that inner feeling of like, I know I need to learn this, and some people won't.
Okay. And so I'm processing that one because I certainly don't feel called to it. what would qualify someone as they shouldn't do this?
Look, it's a really big topic because obviously there's some people that once you learn the ability, so it could be used for, not good. Could be used for those because you learn to tap into energy so much that you can read what's happening for the person, like emotionally, their thoughts or what's going on for them, like where they should go. And, you could intervene with their soul's growth, essentially. So that's why some people should be mediums, and that's why most people who are mediums will have gone through a lot of trauma, because it's a training ground. It's spirit putting you through the training, like that was supposed to happen, so that you could then go on and help people to kind of like support their journey.
Makes sense. Yeah, you hear similar things when you go out and learn things like NLP.
Yeah.
Where they say this, if you do this right, it can be hugely powerful and positive. But if you do it wrong, you can be like the Wolf of Wall Street and just manipulate people into buying things.
Yes, exactly.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So with great power comes great responsibility, to quote Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. We don't have many Spider-Man quotes on the show, but that's our first one. And your name's Ben. So there we go. Are you an uncle?
I am, yes.
Goodness me, it's getting a little bit trippy in here, boys and girls. All right, so mediumship mentor. This is what I'm super interested in, because this is so two sides of your business, one being mediumship readings for people, and the other side being mediumship mentoring and helping people through that process. So people are coming to you saying that they'd love to learn how to do this, connect deeper, do it for a living. What's the first step to someone who potentially hasn't connected before? They feel drawn to it, but they haven't done it before. What's the first step to helping them become a medium? Do you do a reading with them?
So the first step, when somebody is looking, or they have that feeling, that inner feeling of like, I feel like I want to be a medium, like I'm feeling drawn into it. The first step is healing, is the very first step. And interestingly, it's the step that most people miss, because you will only go so far in mediumship as your trauma will allow you to. And it's as simple as that. So, for example, when I started my journey, healing was never mentioned. No one ever told me anything about healing. They're like, I'll teach you how to connect to the spirit world. Great. I'll show you the techniques to be able to deliver this reading. And I just hit this wall constantly. And I was working so hard, so many hours, trying to practice my mediumship, trying to get it to a level, because I wanted to transition out of the work, out of my job, into doing this full time. Just couldn't. It wouldn't work. And it was only when I stepped out, because what would happen in my readings is I couldn't receive the information I needed. So say, for example, there was someone that came in, for me it was the domestic violence. I wouldn't receive the information around the domestic violence because I hadn't done the work on myself around that. So it would be traumatic for me to then see or experience some kind of evidence where somebody had been through domestic violence, because I hadn't dealt with that part of me. And that's why I couldn't go further in my mediumship.
So there was like a block. If the thing that you're connecting with was traumatic for you, you need to get rid of that trauma, or at least deal with it, so that then you can open up that blockage and then channel it in a positive way, rather than it being a negative experience for you. Because I imagine your energy is very, very important in the session. You need to be spirits for it to be a positive outcome for the client, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. So, and because spirit will never put you in an uncomfortable situation for yourself, you'll never be harmed. So if you've got trauma there, whatever it is, you're never going to receive that in your mediumship. You're going to have the person in front of you that really needs to hear sorry because of the domestic violence, and you're not even going to receive the information. And that's what I was getting blocked on many different areas. So that's just one example of where I was being blocked.
So the spirit themselves will know that you've got those triggers there, and so therefore, because they love you, they won't talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
right. Cool. So healing, because we were speaking about this before, about your own lead generation for your business, and you were saying that there's some people are coming to you still, and the reason they want to learn about mediumship is because they're grieving, and one would imagine that makes them the perfect student, but apparently not. just yet.
Yeah, long term, yes, they're the perfect person because they are helping people who are going through what they went through. But when you're deep in grief and you haven't really done the work on yourself yet, you haven't started that journey of healing, how far are you really going to get in being able to develop this connection? Because it's just going to be tainted by this grief and this hurt and this sadness that you've got, which, you know, let's face it, most of us have lost someone close to us. That never really goes away, does it? We just learn to adapt. We learn to carry on with our lives with that still there.
Yeah, okay. So you've just got to get them over those initial briefs into a clearer headspace, and that's when Ben Eden, the healing medium, comes in.
Yeah.
And that's, I hate to use the term because it's such a emotional topic, but that your USP, like your unique selling proposition, is that you help to heal these people first.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
But you're doing that, you know, I know you mentioned that the traditional way of doing that is through lots and lots of meditation and work. You've managed to sort of fast track the process. How have you done that?
So essentially, the biggest thing for me is that whether we all realize it or not, we have all picked up limiting beliefs throughout our life, through our traumas. Like, just look to the age of 7. We don't know how to parent kids. We still haven't really learned how to do that. You know, we're making really great progress moving forward in terms of holding space emotionally for our children. But how many people out there, when their child cries or is angry, actually allow their child to be angry or cry? Not many. I don't know many parents that do that. And it isn't anything wrong that we're doing anything wrong at all. It's just that we just don't know. We're still learning and we're still growing. So through that, what happens is we pick up these limiting beliefs that maybe like we're not good enough, we're not worthy enough, like we can't do things. And we kind of learn over time to not trust ourselves. And then we kind of add society onto that, and we go into the workforce, and then there's a wrong and a right way. And same with school, there's a wrong and a right way. But we know, you know, as entrepreneurs, as people, as adults, that there is not just one way to get a solution. There's so many ways you can go down. So this life that we live, that we're brought up in, it creates all these limiting beliefs and with the emotions stored in the body. So what I found that worked really, really fast for me when I was going through this journey, I had to step out of mediumship and heal. And I learned to connect to my body somatically, which is where the trauma is stored. And instead of trying to reject these parts of me, which I'd spent my whole life doing, rejecting the parts of me that I didn't like, you know, the part of me that was scared to fail, the part of me that didn't feel good enough, the part of me that didn't feel worthy to be a medium, constantly trying to get rid of those parts actually just makes them come back stronger. So somatically, I learned to connect to the body, and instead of rejecting them, actually making peace of them and welcoming those parts in, and then doing the necessary steps within the healing to then be able to look at, okay, I've got this block that I don't feel good enough, finding out where did this come from. Okay, this came from when I was 3, and then go into the original event that was created and clearing the emotion and reframing the event. Because as a 3-year-old, you did not see the truth of the event, did you? You didn't. You were just emotional. So that emotion is still in your body now. So if we clear that and now look at the event, the chances are you're going to look at that in a completely different way. So let's reframe it, which then therefore changes you in the present moment.
How do you reframe it? Is that with timeline therapy or something similar?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. That stuff blew my freaking mind when I did it for the first time.
Yeah.
Because as I say on this podcast all the time, I'm just a tragic resistor of personal development and spirituality and stuff. And it's probably something to do with a massive trauma in my life that I don't know about yet. Yeah. But basically, like, I went to an NLP course to do, learn the skills to progress in business. And what ended up happening was a lot of personal stuff came out that I didn't even know about. And we did timeline therapy, and I'm sitting there watching all these people kind of go deep, and I'm like, this is nonsense. And then I, within about 48 seconds, I was just bursting out crying, having these memories that I didn't know it even happened. And honestly, that NLP course I did, shout out to Luke Hawkins, dude, that opened up, just, it brought to my attention the events and the things that had happened in my life to give me certain mindsets. And from there, I've had the best year ever every year, not just financially, just in general.
Yes.
Like, just from knowing why I was, stopping myself from succeeding, that sort of thing. So I can completely see why your method of helping people to heal before they try and succeed in something is 100% necessary. And I'm really glad that you help people to do it.
Yeah, it's massive.
That's good stuff. It's massive, man. It's massive. And I'm also really impressed just from a marketing standpoint that you've got what I would consider to be a pretty specialized area of expertise. And, you can't exactly go out on Facebook and target people who feel like they have a connection to the spirit world, that sort of thing. But you've built a great following and a great community. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you've managed to position yourself as the go-to guy in the space and have so many warm leads, just knowing that Ben is the guy who can help them?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is that most people out there who are teaching mediumship don't know that their clients need healing. And this isn't to shame them or say anything bad to them. They just don't know any different. They're just trying their best to help people, and there's so many people out there heart-centered and give so much. But the clients are going through these mentorships, and healing not mentioned, right? So learning mediumship, they don't feel good enough. So then they turn up every week for the mentorship, still don't feel good enough. Fast forward 5 years, still don't feel good enough. Not moving forward. And, it is in a way is a disservice to these people to teach them without saying, hey, I don't think it's the mediumship that you need to learn. It's actually looking at you. Why don't you feel good enough? So no one's talking about it, firstly, and it isn't included within people's mentorship. So this was one of the biggest ways for me is when I said, well, actually, I am going to implement it. And then I hired a team of therapists to be within my business and created that requirement where when people come through the mentorship, they're going to go through 12 weeks before I'll teach them anything. I'm not going to teach you how to connect to the spirit world. I want you to clear out this unworthiness, I'm not feeling good enough, and this fear, all of the stuff that comes up. So that was one of the biggest ways where people were like, I've not seen this before, and I've not heard anyone talk about it before. So they started to be attracted to that side of it because, of course, everybody wants to heal. If you want to be a medium, you want to heal, you've been through some stuff. So that's really where I was able to start attracting people in. But it's also the way that I teach mediumship is I want it to be in an empowering way for self. Like, I want you to feel good. I want you to have fun. I want this to be an exciting journey for you. I don't want it to feel difficult. So I teach people to connect to the spirit world on demand, which most people out there aren't. So, sometimes you'll go to a medium and they'll say, oh, I've got your teacher from when you were 5. Great. I don't really want to speak to my teacher. I want to speak to my mum. Medium doesn't have the ability to be able to, on demand, go, okay, I'm going to go get mum. So, and this came from really early on in my journey when I saw there was a female that wrote on social media that really pulled at my heartstrings, and she was in her 40s and her daughter died at 8. And this was about 4 or 5 years prior. She'd spent 4 to 5 years trying to connect to her daughter, spent all of her savings on mediums, reading after reading after reading, just so desperate to connect to this young child. And she had gone downhill from the readings because every time she went there, they said, sorry, your daughter's not here. Can't connect to your daughter because they hadn't learned that ability to do it on demand. So the mum got this belief from these situations that my daughter doesn't want to speak to me or my daughter's not safe, which is horrific to think that she was going through that. I saw the post that she was like, can anyone help? I'm desperate. I reached out to her straight away and was like, look, I'll give you a reading. Like, I don't want any money for it. I just want to connect with your daughter. She's here with me. There's no worries about whether you can connect to her or not. Gave her the reading. And this is before I was a teacher, so it was really at the beginning of my journey. And that completely changed and shaped me as a medium and then therefore as a teacher. So I embarked on this journey of finding out and learning as many different techniques as I can, so that as you're the medium, you can meet the needs of this person in front of you and go, right, yeah, okay, mum, let's bring mum in. I'm going to connect you to mum, tell you what mum says. Okay, you want to speak to auntie as well? No worries, let me just grab her. And then I'll connect you to her. So the client has the best experience as they get what they want. Instead of, sorry, your mum's not here. So the healing combined with teaching people how to do this in this empowering way is what draws people into kind of like wanting to work with me.
Mate, it sounds like you're absolutely changing lives. That story is giving me the shivers all over, and I'm really glad that you managed to do it, mate. Ben and I spoke for about 20 minutes before this recording started, so now we're out of time, unfortunately, to continue this conversation. But I know that you've got some great resources that we're going to be putting the links to in and around this show in the show notes and the links in the description wherever we're watching. Your new masterclass, for example. Very excited to help you to share that with people. Ben, Eden, thank you so much for sharing with us today, mate. It's been really, really interesting, and you're a very calm person. You make me feel good and relaxed to be around you, and I'm sure that you're creating some massive positive change in the world, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone who is listening live or on the recording, we love you for that. I'll be back on Thursday with another episode of Coaches to the Moon. Until then, thanks for listening. Much love and peace out. Hey guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode. It means so much to us that you're listening to this content. If you enjoyed the episode, then please go to the show notes and the links in the description to follow our guests on their socials. Check out our pages for clips from this podcast and many more with the world's best coaches. And you can even subscribe to our mailing list where you'll get free marketing resources into your inbox every single week. Know when the newest podcasts are out, and we'll help you with any free or special offers we've got. Thank you so much for doing that, guys. Love you to bits. See you next week. Peace out.
Coaches to the Moon will be back next week. Until then, reach us on Facebook at To The Moon Digital Marketing.